What was your highlight from the Own Your Future challenge?
There there was a lot of good material in there, Aryan, and it was a it was a big week. There was so much richness in there. I think for me, the focus on self leadership that you brought is, well, certainly for me personally, was very impactful, and I think it's a big topic, and I think it's just
Yeah.
so important these days for all of us to be aware of self how we lead ourselves. It's vital.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually that's what I recognize in my own life. It's so easy that it slips out of your hand. You outsource something. You start to depend on people, while actually the ownership is yours. So self
Mm.
leadership is what I believe one of the major keys. And uh, and of course it connects to learning and ownership and leading others, um, organizing yourself, the whole how do I manage my energy we talked about. And yeah, definitely that was interesting interesting topic every time to fit in. And I believe it's an ongoing topic for us to keep talking about, reflecting on, and changing gears.
Yeah, I think so, and I think, yeah, especially in these current times where many of us are now working from home or working remotely or partly or a bit of hybrid. I think for a lot of people who have been entrepreneurs for a while, you're your own boss. You always have been. You sort of that self leadership element is sort of built into that role. But for those that have been have a history of working for others or in large organizations where we're typically part of a team or around a team or accountable to somebody else. Well, that's how it's often framed, isn't it? That we're accountable to somebody else, accountable to those above us, which I really like how you challenged that last week. That was very good. But I think for people like that who are now finding themselves, responsible for their own time and their own, directing their own energies, it's a challenge if it's something that you're not familiar with or haven't really been aware of in the past.
Yeah, yeah, accountability. Actually, that's one of personally that's one of the hardest topics. And we talked about it being accountable to yourself first,
Mm, mm, mm,
and which means that you have to steward that free space, the freedom, or call it the free zone, and not be
mm,
pulled back into the fear zone where we start to do self censorship or self promotion.
mm, mm,
Probably they
mm,
go hand in hand. Like if one person self censors themselves, then someone else takes that space for self promotion. But you get in this unhealthy competition between people. Well,
yeah.
well, actually, we should be in a place where we are celebrated, which results in that we are invited to challenge the status quo, a safe place where you can add yourself to the table, I would say, like contribute what you carry, but beyond that, also be respected, honored for what you
Mm,
carry.
mm, mm,
And we all know that feeling when that happens. And we all know how many times in life we actually sacrifice that for something from the outside. And if you're honest, afterwards we regret. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The highlight for me was also about the overflow of spiritual intelligence in the emotional intelligence and connecting it to emotions. That was for me actually the first time that I added that to challenge,
Mm,
because actually it's a very vulnerable, sensitive topic. And
yeah.
but I was really encouraged by the feedback I got through the group, through the participants, but also the one-on-one, just the emails and the text messages from people that really helped them to tackle that conflict between having an outside world that actually influences our feelings so much that we feel forced to adjust our mindset, our belief system, and at
Mm.
the same time, the inner drive, inner motivation, the hope we have, the faith we have for things we have not seen yet. Well, like you said, for entrepreneurs, that's the lifeline.
Yeah.
That you always we tend to ask each other, is the glass half full or half empty? Well, for an entrepreneur, a glass is a glass. It's always full, air, water, milk. It's about the glass. And
Mm.
so it's the lifeline of having hopes and developing strategies connected to that hope. And it was really fun to take that to the emotional intelligence and connecting it to actually emotions so that we can recognize the emerging future.
Mm. And I think that's key. I think what you're talking about is especially embracing that spiritual intelligence and the emotional intelligence is key, especially when you think about the intuitive thinking and the rational thinking that you touched on as well. I think for a long time, those have been sort of opposing concepts. We've had rational thinking on one side and intuitive thinking on the other. The whole left brain, right brain conversation that people have. But to bring those two together, to have intuitive thinking and rational thinking, to get those working together in synergy, I think is really key for where we're going. And so I think what you're talking about there, the overflow from spiritual to emotional, intelligence is vital for getting that all working together. Yeah. And I mean, it's a source of so much creativity and innovation. I mean, where else does it come from,
Exactly. Like and creativity and courage could be like twin brothers. So, but it takes the courage to exactly create the space to overflow with your creativity. And I believe creativity is connected to the intrinsic part of us being human. And I call them just the gifts, the things we're born with. Well, actually, it's a very hot topic now. I'm born like that. Well, which are the hardware parts? Which are the software parts? That's an enormous debate currently in every setting, organization. And I'm not going into any details what the debate is, but what I miss in the debate is that actually we are born with gifts that we need to develop. And leadership is one, stewardship is one, ownership is one, creativity is one. And we need just to develop them because the software is written by the circumstances, the events, the triggers, being in the right place, like being tolerated versus being celebrated. But that creativity needs to come out. That's the expression of who you are. And if that is connected to creating an enormous hope-filled mental picture, image, dream of your future, then that could overflow in so many what's the word? I would nearly say magnetic emotional intelligence.
Magnetic emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Because we need to attract the right people. We need to be celebrated, which means being in the right group of people. We need to be encouraged. We need to be believed in. We need to be encouraged. Plus the feedback.
Yeah.
The pushback, the push forward. Those elements are so essential for our growth, because else the only option is to be fit in a framework. Check the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do it alone, can you? It's not a solo journey. Any of this, it always has to be done in community, in some sense of community. And as you say, there's sometimes good supportive communities that we can find ourselves a part of, and sometimes there are less supportive communities that we can find ourselves a part of. But I think getting connected with the right people they're all taking their own journeys, like you're taking your journey and I'm taking mine. But we can certainly travel together and support each other along the way, and encourage one another, and challenge one another, and urge each other on to do our best. That's I think again is another key element to taking this journey.
Yeah, it's so much more fun to travel together.
That's
And
true.
sometimes there is a stage you really need to travel alone.
Mm.
And that dynamic, that just makes us human.
Mm.
And that puts, like I love to say, like relationships, that's the context in which we develop, grow, and move forward.
Yeah.
So it's in many settings, it's confused with relationships are a means or relationships are a goal. I think a relationship is much bigger than that. It's the
Mm.
context.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it makes us human to be in that
Mm.
context, so that the other human aspects that come out of creativity, intuition, belief, for what we have not yet seen, strategies, all those spiritual and emotional intelligence elements,
Mm.
they are only part of us being human. There's no
Mm.
other breathing creature out there that shares that. And we're not like, I would say, we're not called to be solo people
Mm.
like this. And solo entrepreneurs, we heard a lot, and I don't believe in it. You can
Mm.
run your one-man band, but you're not solo.
Mm.
You need to be
Mm.
surrounded by travel companions to help you
Mm.
keep going,
Mm.
to help you, to celebrate you, to help you when you stumble, all those just natural things that helps us to stay on track and on speed.
Yeah. Yep. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Vital.
Yeah. Well, just one of the things that I did at the end of the challenge is that actually I gave this checklist,
Mm-hmm.
and of course I probably could write a checklist of the 100 things you need to do to own your future, but I just brought it back to 5. Actually, that saved me a lot of time. So it's not a full list, but are actually these elements, and I can just put them above my shoulder, and I think the image should be big enough to see. But those things that I believe are vital for us to own ourselves, own our future, lead ourselves. That sounds better than own ourselves. Lead ourselves and own our future.
Mm.
In an age where we actually, there's so much coming towards us. How do we filter it? How do we digest it? And how do we not outsource our ownership, our self leadership? Because when we do, we will have a reason to complain. But complaining just makes you you put yourself in the loser spot. You
Mm.
you place yourself as being the victim of the situation,
Mm. Mm.
and that can always happen. But if you do that out of your own initiative by outsourcing actually your ownership and your leadership, that's in my world, that's really actually that's waste.
Yeah.
And not giving you much in return.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this self-leadership and this future mindset are very essential. And of course we need to be informed. We live in an age, and we talked about it in the final session. We live in an age where we are bombarded with half information, with narratives, with one side of the story. And we all
Mm.
have learned at school from history books. When that happens, we have to be really careful. So I'm not painting a doom scenario, but I think we are really need to be careful, and owning your own future, being your self leader is more essential than ever.
Yeah.
Same as with the economy. We are going to a fork in the economy. There is this huge debate between capitalism and socialism globally happening. There is an academic growing force to actually heal capitalism
Mm.
by actually redefining what ownership should mean and what responsibility mean. Well, we addressed some topics of that, but there is also this new decentralized, I would nearly say, reinvented economical system coming, connected to internet, third version.
Mm.
Maybe most people don't recall, but we have the second version. There was a first version that ended up somewhere in the year 2000, and now we have used the second version of the internet. That's growing, and with one of our peers, Bench, we talked about it. Like, actually, the world wants to converge to making things simple and singular. But actually,
Mm.
our creative brain and everything we talk about is actually there to divert and create new options, new solutions. So there is this, you need to understand the economy and the models of information.
I think it's a matter of creating space or finding the capacity, because I think, like you said, that diverging takes creative energy, doesn't it, and mental energy. And I think when there's so much coming at us, we want to simplify it. We just want to keep it really basic. But how do you lead yourself and be informed appropriately so that we can create space in our own lives to do that divergent creative thinking and find those new solutions in new ways.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. We have to create. I would say we need the space, physically, emotionally, intellectually. We need the space to understand the parts that are relevant for us, because we could easily say these are just big subjects. We just need to outsource it to the experts. But when we talk about self-leadership and owning your own future, you cannot outsource them. They are not side things. They will become very soon the main thing. And I'm not talking about missing out, but when you will have a seat in the new train. Well, what if you could choose what seat? We have a fork coming in that perspective of where we need to know what we choose for.
Yeah.
And that's one of my definitions of everyone is a leader. Your choices will influence those around you, including yourself. So you have to make the choice. You cannot outsource making choices.
No, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the main topics of what actually I work daily with is you have that development of your voice. There's a unique voice in you, containing your message, containing your unique value, and like what's yours, because it will accelerate you. And the exploration of your future. Do you have a shape or form of the future that you prefer? Because ownership is actually managing yourself around that perspective. So just to wrap up our session is I just want to repeat actually the offer that I did to the participants of the challenge, and give people that maybe see this as the first recording of the challenge, give them a chance to access the replays. But I'm not want to make more use of your time.
No.
So I want to thank you for your time. and looking forward to keep running together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, say last week was awesome. The challenge and everything that you brought to the table, Ian, was fantastic and really challenging. And it just makes you think. And am I leading myself, or am I allowing myself to just sort of be led here and there? And what does my future look like, and how am I progressing towards that? What steps am I taking? How am I developing my voice? To bring that into reality. It's all things that we need to be reminded of regularly, and I really believe we need to be, if we decide that stuff is really important to us, then we need to be running with a group of people who share a similar mindset. Otherwise, it's too easy to just end up in sort of lost in the drift of where everything else is going.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to close with. Like we can accelerate. Like life is a journey, and so there will be ups and downs. There's something circular in it, in that journey, which means we cannot have shortcuts, but we can accelerate. We can accelerate the process.
And that reminds me of the picture that sticks in my mind most from last week is you're talking about the sailing and the wind rose. And I think you've had it on a previous challenge. I loved it then, and it was just brought more clarity again this week. And just the whole idea of I haven't done much sailing myself, but the whole idea that you can sail into the wind is fascinating. And the fact, and the closer to the wind that you get, that's the most exciting place to be. I love that. So again, just that's to me, that's a kind of a picture that captures what we're talking about. We don't have to sort of be blowing with the wind and just sort of drift across the ocean wherever the wind and the currents are going. But we can set our course and set our sails and sail into the wind, and that's where life is.
Yeah. Well, as a sailor, like, sailing is one of the most amazing things to do with nature, because you really are playing with the wind, and the wind is not predictable. You think you know where it comes from, but it could just change without notifying you. And but what you do with sailing is that you're not are going in front of the wind, so you not just go as with the wind. With life, I think it is a great example. You not just go with the wind in life. You're not going. We could say you're not going with the flow. Like I use that one in another conversation where we say, like, go with the flow. If you look to a river, fresh water, nice fish in it, life goes upstream, not downstream. Garbage goes downstream. So just going with the flow, or with the wind, just going with the wind in a sailing boat, that feels so comfortable. It feels like not much work. You float and you have speed. And then life interrupts. And the whole sail goes from one side of the boat to the other side of the boat. If you were just standing because you thought it was just like floating, you can be just kicked out of the boat, hurt your head, be unconscious. But even when you're prepared for it, you have to catch it with the lines, because else everything could just break off the boat. And then you think, but I was just floating, comfortable, peaceful, calm. No, you are not. You just were not in control. So the most seemingly relaxed position in a sailing boat is the position you're not in control. And in a sailing race, you actually want to prevent as much of those settings as possible. Because even when you accelerate and have huge space, how do you get responsibly your boat out of it by not hurting your gear? So sailing, actually, you want to go into the wind, high up to the wind. And also, like, if you're too high to the wind, it's also not the fastest tack. And that's what it just started years and years ago with just that image. Oh, and yeah, it evolved in this windrose, which actually sailing lessons, a race briefing. You always talk about those positions, and we know them as well from the windroses on top of big buildings like old
Mm.
churches. With
Mm-hmm.
what is it?
Wind vane, I think we call it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we know it from the compass with the
Mm.
directions.
Mm.
So in sailing, they call it the windrose. Yeah, so I will just show at the end how people can get access to those sessions if
Mm-hmm.
they still want to do. There's
Yeah.
a limited time. The replays are available, and before we clean up the system and prepare for the next challenge. So I want to thank you
My pleasure. It's been great.
and speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ian.
Take care.
Yep. You too. Bye.
Bye bye. So just to finish for you all the story, like one of the highlights of closing the challenge is actually for me that we tend to use this African proverb to actually position out some binary decision making. We even like present it as like the responsibility of anyone leading other people. And from an innovation perspective, I know that when you are forced to choose between two options, you're actually in the wrong place, because both options probably have a different benefit in a different setting. But what if there is something in the middle which is much greater than both options? Because each option always have some minuses as well that we just take for granted, and we throw away the other benefits from the option we're not choosing for. We just throw it away, and that's just waste. So I believe that this African proverb is not per se that you have to choose because one option is better than the other. I believe that actually one option is really essential for you in your self leadership when you are in the learning phase. If you're in the learning phase, you don't want spectators. You don't want spectators that follow you. You want to have peers around you, but not spectators. Just imagine like you're leading a huge organization or a huge community, and you're learning. So you're finding out what the next step is. You're pioneering your way. And then you end up on a cliff. And then before you could say to yourself, this was not the smartest route, the whole crowd behind you is just coming together and pushing you. Well, then you know where you will end up. So if you're learning, go fast, go alone. I would say learn fast by making mistakes fast, fail fast, stand up fast, go on fast. And the moment you know where you want to go, then you want to go together, take the other people. When you're leading others, then you go together, because that gives you the option to go far further. In ownership and the future perspective, actually, I want to propose an option that includes the benefits of both and much more, which is actually if you want to accelerate your future, your perspective, your convergence, then go with peers. Find those around you that, on an individual basis, are longing to go the same direction. So it means that you will have individual benefits by traveling together, and which means you're inspired by the others, but the others are also inspired by you. So the win is more than the sum of the parts. That is essential in your development. It is that safe place where you can make mistakes without confusing those people that you lead. It's the safe place where you can find out language and write off language because it doesn't fit. You can just test. It's like this laboratory innovation hub for personal development. So find your peers. And I really believe like the motivation comes from the inside. External motivation doesn't lead to ownership or leadership. External motivation leads to compliance. We've talked a lot about this in the Own Your Future challenge, that compliance is not part of owning your future, because actually that is everything except ownership. Compliance is actually that you censor yourself to the level that all the fuzz is gone. But that means you just leave out your inside. So your spiritual intelligence, your emotional intelligence, your inner voice, your future awareness are all left out. So what's left is actually that you contribute by using your hands to do the work. So it's a bit like, please give me your hands, leave out your head. So don't think too much and talk too much about what you think that's best, and leave out your heart. I think that's the wrong place to be when we talk about ownership and leadership. What you need is actually to master what's inside of you, bring it to a level of excellence, find out where your authority is and your authentic message. That means that you need to have this group of people around you, which I love to call a mastermind, because it's a place of mastery, but it's also where we really can uplift our mindset by all the input of all the other people, all the different perspectives. So, and in that group, this peer-to-peer community, you will do peer-to-peer coaching. So it's not about who's your mentor. No, it's about, this is what I stand for. What do you think? And the other person contributes what they stand for. And you start challenging each other. We did it in the challenge. We did it through the video recordings, the feedback we gave on each other. And we did it in the Q&A sessions. Because everyone has to contribute, carry something. It's not just me hosting the challenge that has all the answers. No, definitely not. I'm a step in a challenge. I'm maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead, but I haven't finished it myself, because it's a journey of a lifetime. And I don't want to finish it before my last breath. And on the other hand, I want to have it finished before my last breath. So it is this intentionality to keep growing and knowing that it happens, being surrounded, being in the context of relationships with the right people. Having this group, this personal development space, is of course step one. But if you're not going to practice it, you just will increase your amount of language, knowledge, but not with life experience. So actually your authority is going down, because leadership for others means that you lead by example. So if you haven't done it yourself, there's not much to lead. So practice it, test it, create great choices, and come back with the great choices. Throw it in this group. And once in a while, I would say, get someone that coaches you. Coaches you by just asking you very confrontational, challenging questions. Not to just break you down, but really to bring you back to a reflection where you go really to the core elements of what you believe, to actually keep you on track, accelerate you. So it is this dynamic, peer-to-peer, mastermind, real life. That's for every participant of a mastermind different. And then the coach that asks you the challenging questions. What I have offered in the challenge is access for free, a free trial to such a peer-to-peer community and such a level of coaching. It's 21 days, and we meet every Friday, 9 a.m. Central European time, 9 a.m. Central American time. Unfortunately, not yet somewhere in the Asian Pacific. We don't have that time window yet, but it could grow. And I invite you to just test out the peer-to-peer community, to find your authentic sound bites. Like your message is probably a composition of all sound bites in your life, but just ordered in a different way to bring them in harmony, to actually accelerate your future identity and to develop your voice of influence. The peer-to-peer coaching is that we get pushback feedback over the weeks that we run together, over the months, or maybe longer. Get the pushback, the encouragement, the support, but also really being challenged. Like you say this, I feel that. Explain. Or you introduce something, you mention a concept, but I don't feel it. Like, can you give me an example how that, without explaining a concept? Those kind of things over and over, step to step, just develop for you the right language to identify your future identity. When you start believing your own future identity, then the world around you will change. So you need to stay on track. It needs to stay top of mind. The invitation is an offer, and the offer stands till the end of the day. And if you join tomorrow, October 1st, as a guest in one of the masterminds, I definitely will give you the same offer. But then you have to show up tomorrow. So the link actually to both the guest session and the offer is on this on the whiteboard, which is businessrevivalists.com/mastermind. And what I give you is, for as long as you join, the discount of 21% on the monthly subscription fee. And every second month, there will be an hour where we do one-on-one reflecting to give you these challenging questions to help you to test something different. Actually, I want to give you that 1 hour within the 21 days. So that means that within 21 days, you know and have experienced the value of a peer-to-peer group. You found out if these are your peers for this stage in your journey, and you find out how this coaching helps you. I would say just test it, try it out. Financially, you will not be charged before the end of the trial. So financially, there are no strings attached. There is nothing that you would say that's an obstacle. So just try it. It only asks you to set some time apart. What I want to say to you, if you want to lead your future, then 1 hour a week, that's for most people less than 2% of their time spent in work and development. That's not a lot. I would say that's the bare minimum to call yourself a leader, a self-leader. Personal development keeps you in the positive, healthy mind, mental space that you don't start to control others or slide down to become someone who blames obstacles and you end up in the victim mode. So give yourself a fair chance. If this is not your peer-to-peer group, draw that conclusion during the trial. But then I encourage you to find your group. Don't go and stay alone out there. You're not the only one finding out where to go, pioneering the future. You're definitely not the only one. You're the one with a unique voice and a unique message and unique value. So find a place where you're celebrated and encouraged to develop it into something powerful the world is waiting for. So having said that, I want to announce the next challenge. The next challenge will be mid-November. So it will be before Thanksgiving. So you definitely have something to be thankful for during Thanksgiving. But it also will just prepare you for the next year. Like, not everyone thinks in seasons from January to December, but many do. And in society, we definitely talk a lot about those good intentions for the new year. I don't believe in lists with good intentions. I believe in strategies based on perspective and understanding. So what I want to do and help you is actually get a grip in 5 days of your preferred future. I will help you by revealing to you a unique process how to time travel and develop a perspective based on your future and based on who you are today, seen from the future. Essential elements that during the challenge we mentioned many times. The biggest shift in life, the biggest paradigm shift you can make is turn 180 degrees. Stop walking backwards to the future, but look face first, straight ahead into the future. That 180 degrees from fixing yesterday's leftovers to creating your future is the essential conversation that needs to be a primary one in your mindset, in your self-talk, in your personal development, in your self-leadership. I'm not going to repeat the whole challenge. But if you want to have access to the replays, I promised you, and I will leave the screen on for a limited time by just signing up for the challenge, the previous challenge, last week challenge, you will get access to the replays and you will be informed about the new challenge mid-November. So please take use of this offer. Connect to me or to Shane if there's anything that triggered you and you think, oh, it helps me to just ask a question, leave a comment. Please do use the chat options through the channels we broadcast this session, and we will come back to you because there's nothing better than a good conversation. So thank you very much. I hope I'll see you tomorrow in the mastermind or the next challenge, or at least in the future soon. Take care. Thank you for now.